Very thankful for everything that you do look for us, Lord, your love, your grace, and your mercy, Lord. We just ask you for your continued guidance in all that we do, Lord. May it be done to honor you, Lord, and to honor this community with our every decision that we make, Lord. May it be done unto you. Again, we just thank you and praise you in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Okay, we'll call the Yale City Commission regular meeting to order.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Jason Brown?
Here.
Mr. Larry Brown?
Here.
Mr. Schrader?
Here.
Mrs. Griffin? Here.
Item 3, consent agenda, approval of minutes, regular meeting February 13th, 2024, approval of claims and financial statements. I would like to have PO numbers 76005, 76007, and 76043 removed from the consent agenda.
I'd like to have PO 76020 removed, please.
Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve the remainder of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schrader?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 4, we'll do these items removed from the consent agenda. I had PO numbers 76005, 76007, and 76043 removed. Anybody have a motion for those?
I'll make that motion.
One second.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schrader?
Here. Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown?
Abstain. Okay, Nancy had PO number 76020 removed.
I just had a question. It looks like this is a renewal for that TextMyGov, and so do you feel like, I mean, I think it's a good thing, but I was wondering, do you have more and more people joining at our text using this, or have you kept information on it? You feel like it's been helpful?
I haven't got a count on it recently. We did have a 2-year contract with them, so this is the second year.
The second year, but you feel like it's cut down on maybe some phone calls?
I do.
and
I
like
think it's been
communication.
definitely, yeah.
I think it's been a good tool, so
Okay.
especially with outages and different things. So.
Okay, well, I know I like getting that information.
I wish more people would sign up for it.
Do you know how many we have signed up or ballpark?
The last count I got, I believe, was around 400. I haven't gotten them recently, but I can get that tomorrow.
Maybe something we need to do another campaign to get the word out on it.
I know they had emailed me just today. They have a new widget they're wanting to add to our social media. So.
Is that it?
That was it.
I'll make a motion that we approve PO number 76020.
One second.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schrader?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown?
Yes. Okay, item 5, public appearances. The public may address the mayor and city commission at this time regarding matters over which the commission has control that are not listed on the agenda. The city commission is prohibited by the Oklahoma Open Meeting Law from discussing or taking any action on matters presented during this time and may refer such items to appropriate staff members for resolution. Title 25, Section 301. So anybody have anything they want to bring before the board at this time? Mr. Lozier?
Yes, I noticed that the pool hasn't been on the agenda for getting the repairs, making sure it's going to be open. This is the second year that it's been closed going on. If we don't open it this year, it's 3 years. I know there was discussion on funds and how much it costs to fix it. And discussion on it being handicap accessible. In 2001, the city got a $150,000 grant specifically for the park to be used on the pool. Worked on it addressed handicap and stuff. In 2006, I participated in a $150,000 grant to make the pool handicap accessible and up to code. The first grant was to also fix it, had a major leak, and that was fixed. So that's like $300,000 already spent. In 2006, May or June, Danny Gripe had the board, we voted to create the utility fees. We didn't have fees before that. The fees were for capital outlay for projects like the pool and to reimburse income because in 2006-07, fuel was jumping up close to $4 a gallon, and he was predicting $5 a gallon and the cost of living, which we're now getting. But we made these fees back then for the fuel, the cost of living, and for capital outlay. And since that time, we've put in over $10 million in that. You know, we should have the money. Just this year alone, $600,000 on capital outlay and fuel fees. So the money should be there. And I'm just concerned, you know, it's going to sit there and rot and we won't open it. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else? Moving on, item 6, ordinances. Consideration, discussion, and action on ordinance number 414, an ordinance amending section 4-21 of chapter 4 of the Yale City Code to provide for recreational vehicles within the city of Yale and declaring an emergency.
Realize none of the 5 of you have had a chance to really discuss this prior to tonight. So the kind of the history or the genesis of the ordinance is it grew out of the conversation at the, I think, January meeting, could have been the February meeting, when there was an ordinance proposed. After that meeting, the manager and Deanna got with me, and we discussed and talked about were there perhaps some compromise approaches that could be taken by the city, were there some approaches that could be taken to find maybe some middle ground to this issue. And so this ordinance tonight is an attempt to do that, as far as having it put on the agenda and having it drafted. And it would be entirely up to the 5 of you, but I don't know that any of the 3 of us, as we discuss this, necessarily thought tonight you would vote on it, nor did we think that we necessarily were placing it on the agenda with the intent of you all voting on it, as much as giving you the opportunity and the forum to discuss it. And if in fact you're comfortable with it, the way it's on the agenda, you certainly can vote on it tonight. The bottom line to what the ordinance does is it mirrors, it copies an ordinance that we've had forever and a day that allows temporary utility service to someone, a builder, a remodeler, whatever the case may be, who's constructing or remodeling or working on a structure, and it's not ready to receive an occupancy permit and not ready to receive, not ready to be lived in or occupied. And so there is a provision back in chapter 25 for years and years. It's allowed essentially temporary service is what it is. And this would do the same. It would allow temporary occupancy under a number of different rules and regulations. And so I'd be happy to answer questions as best I can, but that's the genesis, the origin of the ordinance was, as I said, Deanna and Philip suggested that perhaps staff could try to find some sort of a compromise situation to this problem, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We got a guy on 3rd Street that's rebuilding a house. He bought a house off of, yes, and he's remodeling it. He's bought, I guess he's going to do 6 other houses.
I believe 7.
That's what he said. He's going to do 6 other houses. So as he's remodeling, he's staying on property. And
Today they were installing all new windows when I was.
all new windows, yeah. So I know we did it before for the guy up on
Easter.
D Street.
Yeah, I wonder how that, if we do put this into effect, how that's gonna work with him. We'd start with the, let's give him 180 days. So if he doesn't have it done, he'd get 180 days. And that, I mean, some of these questions. And then another question I had about this, the current ordinance we have is pretty vague. I mean, it talks about obviously where you can't store, you can't have an RV in the front of your property and all those kinds of things. But how does this, I don't see another ordinance having to do with recreational vehicles. Like if I go out and buy one and I'm not going to use it as a landlord, I'm not going to live in it, I'm not going to do anything but have it on my property, obviously not in the front, but let's just say on the side or in the back. If we don't have any other, I mean, how's that would that fit into something like this? Do we have to add something like that to this ordinance? If people with RVs are just wanting, because basically this has all of the rules of pretty much a mobile home, so would if I bought one, I mean, I had
We've
one,
already got an ordinance in place for storage of RVs in the city.
but doesn't this one's, okay, so recreational vehicle storage and parking, and so that this one says just recreational vehicles, but then it also, okay, I see, that's 421, and so this is this is 421. So, I just didn't see anything about, I thought this was more about landlords and living in it for 6 months, up to 6 months at a time.
Yeah, it says right in there where you can get.
Paragraph B. Oh, sorry, not B.
B,
I think that paragraph D is.
C1, right?
C1? Well, that doesn't really cover if you just buy one and you want to just have it on your property and take it to the lake every weekend.
I think it's.
But I mean, B1's
Oh,
vague
I'm
enough
sorry.
that a landlord of a vacant premise, I mean, that's essentially saying you could get an RV permit and live in it yourself there on your own vacant lot, right?
Well,
If you're your own landlord.
I hate to open it. I know I don't hate. I want to be clear on these. We've been watching a lot of the House of Representatives, and
Heaven forbid.
I know. So maybe it's kind of scary.
Your point, I think, is well taken. That's it. I believe well, E.
Do you think it's E?
E.
Okay.
E is the continuation of what I think you're speaking to
Okay.
and looking to.
So he is not living in.
No.
Okay, so that amends the old
Okay, I
It's
see.
all
ordinance.
the
It amends the old
above. It's all
ordinance.
the above. That,
Okay. That makes sense.
that language, E, I lifted out of the old ordinance.
Okay. Just so we'd be clear on that, okay, I got it. I see that. Thank you.
This more defines the word temporary, correct? So it gives us an actual
But that just gives
length of time.
how close it can be to the road and another building and stuff. That didn't answer your question about using it as your personal dwelling.
I don't believe E addresses you having an RV that you just want to go to the lake whenever you want to.
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, that just says, basically gives the constraints of where it can be within your property.
I think everybody's concern is just, it's not set up as a permanent residence, right? It is limited, the time is limited.
But realistically, what happens in 175 days? They come down and file for a new permit and grant it again?
It's like anything else that we put in the code book, Commissioner, it'll become an enforcement issue and/or at that point in time, perhaps an interpretation issue. It doesn't have anything in it, as you well know from looking at it, that says you can have one 180-day permit, and that's all she wrote. Now, that would be something that if you as a board, you were sensitive to that, you could add to it. Again, a little bit of this is kind of a working process to give it to you all to look at, and certainly one of your options tonight is say, no, we don't even like that. We'll just let this one go away also.
I'll second that motion.
Karen, did you want?
Hi, yeah, I'm just really concerned on this because we're talking about when is this effective? It was an emergency order put in as an emergency order in the meeting last month to be addressed this month. So I would say it would be effective whatever date of the meeting was last month.
That's incorrect.
When would it be effective?
It's not effective at all, nor will it be effective until this board passes it, and then they'll have to put an effective date on it.
Okay,
So it is not effective and nothing.
so
about it is
anyone
effective.
that would be in breach of any of this right now today would be grandfathered in that this doesn't apply.
If in fact there is a grandfather clause provision, then yes, it would apply. Any ordinance that's passed with a few exceptions by any community is considered to be grandfathered in. Ordinances that have direct impact upon peace, health, and safety can be said to not be grandfathered.
I have real concern over Joe Wade's trailer park. It's an RV park. People are gonna possibly come in there for more than 180 days. And I do not know what the permits were when he established that. Do you?
Personally, I don't know.
If you don't, I think that you have to dig in and find out what those were. Because he's a business owner in this town. You don't want to run business out of this town. You don't want to run paying meters out of this town.
This doesn't apply to trailer parks then.
Is it a trailer park?
This
Or is it
does,
just land that he has that he established and he calls it Wade's RV park? That's what I'm saying. When he did that, did he go through the city? Were there parameters on it? Is it a trailer park? It's in the city limits, and we do have others that are within the city limits that are trailer parks.
we have other trailer parks in city limits.
Yeah, isn't
Well, Charleston,
yeah.
Cheese on Charleston is in the city limits.
Mhm.
You're probably on the verge of violating the open meeting law, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah.
There's no trailer park reference on the agenda.
I think my concern is and has been just we're opening up a can of worms here because again, without Yale having proper zoning, this means that with this, anybody can put an RV any place, anywhere. We've already got an ordinance problem, or I'm sorry, a code enforcement problem in this community. I mean, just like you stated, this comes out of necessity because how's it fair for the half dozen already established? So who's truly going to enforce this and uphold this one when we're not enforcing and upholding the stricter laws we already have? With this lack of zoning, this means that RVs could go up in any of our neighborhoods anywhere. And I'll tell you, I don't want one in the empty lot at the end of my block.
That's probably right.
There's no probably, it's right. I mean, you could put one any place, anywhere in town. And then again, there's nothing that says in 178 days you can't go file for another one, pay another $20. And in 5 years' time, we're in this citywide RV park. It's a huge problem for the property values and the folks that have bought homes and maintained properties all throughout town. There's a handful of nice RV parks in the county. If somebody wants to live in one, there's options. It's not our duty to lower our property values citywide to appease a few folks. That's my standpoint. I think we have a lot, I'll just keep talking because I like to. I think we have a lot more folks that we need to worry about upholding their rights and wishes than the few with this.
Mr. Lozier?
Yeah, I had a few things. I start off, responding to him. We have a few people who bought new homes. We've got people whose families been here for over 100 years. You're gonna drive them out for a few people. You know, you're passing laws to make other people's lower income or valued property have to match the higher for a few. You know, people have rights too. You know, the poor, just because they don't have money, you know, they bought a house for $3,000. They don't have to make it worth $200,000 because the bank decided to build new homes and make money off of it. This is bull. I think you guys should make a committee or call a town hall meeting and get the community's input. You know, it's their town. It's not 5 commissioners. I know they voted you in, but okay. I agree with. I like what the attorney said. This is a ordinance for you to look at, work on. I have some things like the grandfathering clause. He answered that. There's a thing in here that says the property owner can only have one RV. One. You know, we got people having 2 or 3. We've got the guy on Broadway, bought the old Studebaker building next to it. He's got 2 or 3. He's gonna have to remove them and only have one, and never have more than one. And he's gonna have to get a permit every time he comes in for different. We have people in town that have more than one RV. So they should be allowed to have more than one stored on their property. And this says only one allowed stored on any single property. The trailer park is included in this ordinance because this is very specific ordinance, and it goes into details, and it says no more than one on any property in Yale. So he can't have more than one RV rented out on his place. And I'm not against him. I mean, I want him to have that park, and I hope you all change that so that the RV parks can rent out to more than one. Let me see. I think since 2020, you've been rewriting these mobile homes and RV ordinances over and over and over. The only one making money on this is the attorney. Just over and over and over. You should just scrap it, find out what the people want. You know, how many times have you changed the ordinances to fit an older mobile home, an older RV? Yeah, he wants me to shut down because he didn't let this go.
You got 3 minutes.
Did you start a time clock?
I did.
Okay.
Much.
I expect this to be for everybody from now on. You know, you've been giving people double time, so I'll go ahead and give up my spot.
But I think that whatever ordinance we do here is gonna make whoever enforces these ordinances is gonna be a really unpopular person wherever he goes, I think. And I think that's what's, whoever has to enforce it is gonna be a very unpopular person. And like I say, there's some issues that need to be enforced anyway right now. So I think that we have to look. I'm really for the poor people, but yet we have to have laws and ordinances. If we don't, everything's just for naught. We're just sitting here just blowing in the wind. But this is what I see about these ordinances. It's going to make whoever enforces these ordinances a very unpopular person. And
you have to have someone that doesn't have bias whenever they're making those decisions.
Maurice, I don't think I've said this in 5 years, but I actually agree with you. We do have properties all over town violating our current ordinances that are much stricter. So why the hell pass some that are more lax if we're not going to enforce the ones we have? Let's clean up the town, not make it worse.
Let's stop bringing new people in. Let people live here. You're making money.
I am.
You are.
I don't bake in this town
You
anymore.
do.
Speaking of the grandfathered in clause on this
Ask again,
ordinance,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
on the grandfathered in clause on this ordinance, do we have a list of who has mobile or RVs in the town right now?
RVs or mobile?
Or RVs?
They went through the commission.
Those I have, those that have permits, it's a very short list, I believe, so I could
I mean,
look that.
my point is if those move out, how do we know which ones are grandfathered in and which ones weren't if we don't have a list of the ones that were already here?
Would you like us to make a list of them?
If this ordinance passes, I believe we need to, yes.
This is not for permanent housing, and I know there's some in town right now that's being used for permanent housing, and that's what I'm saying. There's some in town that's being used for permanent housing. If you're going to enforce it for one, we have to enforce it for everybody, and that's going to affect everybody. So I don't think, like I said, I don't think it needs to be up to one enforcement officer to do that. I think it needs to come right back to this council. If we pass something, it needs to come right back here and rest on our doorstep, so that they can be angry with us instead of just one or two people that's enforcing those ordinances. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think it has to rest right here, and we have to be part of the enforcement.
Let's do it. Table this and clean up the town first. Let's see where we're at in 60 days.
I know
It's not gonna happen.
You guys
Just making
are
it worse.
to act as city managers, that's his job.
I don't want to pass it.
You create the law, he enforces it. That's it.
You know, there's towns that don't allow them at all,
A lot of towns.
a lot of towns. And so I'm not saying we need to go that far, but why is Yale always the one that has to, I mean, it's like, I think Perkins is one now that doesn't allow. I believe that's the case.
They do not.
I don't think Wilton and Jennings allows RVs as permanent structures. I mean, most towns do not allow RVs as
Well, I
permanent structures.
don't want,
Or even whatever you call
we had
it.
this discussion before about permanent ones, and that was 2 months ago, one that nobody would die for lack of motion. So this one at least has a little bit more in it, but I personally wouldn't be ready to vote on this tonight because I think it needs a little bit more verbiage, a little bit more clarification. I just feel like the problem is everything we do has to be in an open meeting, and so, again, I mean, you all can do it, but we have to have something. Let me just put it that way. I think we got to start from somewhere, and we've got to start having some ordinances. We've got to start having them enforced. And enforce the ones we have, because that's true. We have plenty of ordinances, but we have an enforcement issue, and we need to work on that. So that's my feeling right now is I wouldn't personally.
I think a motion, you should just table this for a few more months.
I agree with that.
I'm more than happy to do whatever you all direct me to do. I think Commissioner Goodman makes, some good point from the standpoint of probably not much secret, certainly for those of you who've been on this board for a year or two or longer, that a whole bunch of anything you'll read in any ordinance that we suggest is stolen from some other city. Don't reinvent the wheel. I was not able to find an RV ordinance anywhere to save my soul. I looked and looked and looked. And yes, Perkins has one that outlaws them entirely. You probably wouldn't even want to walk in the front door of City Hall and say the words recreational vehicle for what response you get. My point being that if you have some idea of some suggestions you'd like to try to have put in this, I'd welcome them. either tonight at the board meeting or contact me individually. I think all of you know how to do that. Or I'll listen or take what I've heard here tonight and see if I can incorporate some of those ideas. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
What I was trying to say about enforcement and resting here at this table, I think there's a lot of poor people in this community. And I'm saying that if it's, I think that, I almost think that we should just go stand in front of the doors and see the people that we're affecting, lives that we're affecting. I think we need to go personally and watch how this is affecting their lives and what they're doing, instead of just giving it to Philip Kelly and a couple of officers and they're going to be so unhappy and everybody's going to be mad. I think you need to look people in the eye and see how you're affecting their lives and what we're doing as a community. And I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way I feel, because it's going to affect a lot of people's lives. The ordinances that we have, and that's the reason we have them, to enforce them. So I agree, we need to enforce the ordinances that we have, but I think people need to see what's affecting and what's it's doing to people's lives when we enforce them. And so,
Well, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, we allowed the guy to move an RV in up here. He's working on his house on D Street.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's 121 South D.
Okay. So we allowed it for him. You know,
I think that's-
I'm against RVs, okay? I am. Don't get me wrong, I'm not. But we did it for him. So if we're gonna not do it anymore, then fine. You know. But we're gonna have to stay strong on that. Okay?
and it's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to affect more than just one or two people.
But to Brian's point, there are a lot of properties out there that there aren't any people even living on that need taken care of, need cleaned up. That, maybe we don't know who to contact. But I mean, the beautification can start where true day-to-day living isn't even affected.
I have to stop you.
Okay,
Your time has been.
oh,
I think we also need to look in the eyes the landlords, the property owners, the renters, the business owners in our community already that have made major investments into our community already, whether it be a $20,000 house or a $200,000 house. We owe upholding the laws, whether they be current ordinances or future ordinances, to those people alike. I mean, I made a major investment to live in this town, so has 90% of this room. Do you want an RV parked next to your house for 180 days at a time for the next 6-7 years? I don't. And it's not because I own an RV. I like it, but I use it for its intended purpose. And I get the luxury of living in a home. But you know what? There's a place for these things, and it's not in the middle of our neighborhoods. And right now we have 0 ordinances and 0 zoning. Zero zoning. We obviously have an ordinance to prevent it from being in any neighborhood in this community. We're not upholding the current stuff, like you said. So this makes it easier. This makes it easier for one to be parked next to your business and your church and our homes all over town. Why do we want to do that? I get there's a place for it, but you know what? It's in the county where they're allowed. Short commute to Dollar General from there.
So what about the ones that, like the guy on 3rd Street that's, renovating a house and fixing to have a new meter in, and he's just wanting to put it there while he's renovating his home?
If we're going to uphold it for one, we can uphold it for all. You can get a long-term, whether you can rent it for 14 days at a time in the city park, or for $375 a month, you can be right out there on Norfolk Bridge. I mean, I'm fine with being across the board on it. Call me a jerk. I know I am. I know I'm outspoken, guys, but I don't want this crap next to my house. Don't want it next to your houses. Don't want it next to your business. Don't want it next to the school. But you're right. Perkins has a 0 tolerance policy. But you know what? Look at where Perkins was 20 years ago when they had the cojones to stand up and make a rule like this. And look at where Perkins is today. And go back in 5 or 10 years and look at where Perkins is going to be. So we're not going to be there if we keep getting laxed every time somebody pushes us on any simple deal in this town. There's no long-term benefit to allowing this crap all throughout our community. It's time we have a backbone and uphold the law for the property owners and business owners in our town.
I think I can say this. I don't I don't agree with Brian all the time, but I really almost agree with him. I think it needs to be, if it's gonna stand for one, it needs to stand for everybody across the board.
We've got some that
There's not
came
gonna
through.
be, there's not gonna be one over here and not here. It has to be across the board. And it's gonna be hard. There's gonna be a lot of opposition to it, but
We've got some that came through this commission. Okay, what about those?
I can think of 2 in 5 or 6 years.
I can
that
think
have-
of 1 and 2, yes.
I guess
think
that's a
they can
question for
answer
him.
that. Wait. Y'all can't answer that. That's not on the agenda. Don't talk in any kind of way that would suggest an answer to that question because you just violated the open meeting law.
I think we could provide a list of nearby short-term, medium-term, and long-term RV parks, and if anybody has an interest in that sort of dwelling, then we could provide that to them. But I think that's kind of where the road ends for what the city of Yale owes somebody for temporary or long-term residence in an RV park.
so we just need to table this until we have some more, decide for sure what we're gonna do. So that's my motion.
To win,
Yes, pardon me?
to win, subject to call or a certain date.
Subject to call.
Second.
Mr. Porter,
Since Larry said he agrees with me, I'll say yes.
Mr. Strader,
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown.
Yes. Okay, since this was tabled, we'll skip item B. Item 7 is general orders, consideration, discussion, and action on a permit agreement between the city of Yale, Oklahoma, and Payne County, Oklahoma, regarding installation of equipment on premises.
Okay, Payne County, we've talked about this before, is using their ARPA funds to fund a countywide radio system, which will work anywhere in the county. A handheld radio like this will work anywhere in the county. And they're going to provide us with $300,000 to $400,000 worth of equipment, radios, vehicle radios, and handhelds. And what we give them in return is we just allow them to put 2 microwaves on our west tower. And we're not responsible for any upkeep, maintenance, anything of these microwaves. They're all responsible for all the cost of that.
They install them?
Hmm?
They install them?
Yes, they install them and they maintain them, and they're going to put a small building out there for some of the equipment.
Is that what this 12 by 10 Motorola building is? That's what
Yes.
you're talking about? And that's gonna be out, where will that be located?
By our West Water Tower.
Okay.
And they're mounting it on the handrail, they're not actually mounting it on the trailer, they're on the tank itself.
Correct.
It's just a couple of transmitters or microwaves used.
Couple of microwaves and, like you say, the little building. It's. I
And
reckon-
basically, they're doing, this is just a win-win for everybody. They're taking, it's all county ARPA fund money, and we don't have any investment
Correct.
to for better county-wide communications.
Correct. I can talk from right here. I can talk to somebody on the other side of Stillwater with this handheld.
And
Which
it's
I can't get out 5 miles right now.
Okay.
Maybe 2 miles. It's just safer for the first responders. What's a first responder's life worth?
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion if you're ready for one. Make the motion, we agree approve the permit agreement between the city of Yale and Payne County for the installation of equipment on city premises.
I'll second that.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Strader,
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown.
Yes. Item 8, adjournment.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Strader,
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin, Mr. Larry Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Jason Brown.
Yes.